No one can deny that the civil rights movement has changed America in profound ways. The question really is, how profound, how fundamental, how permanent? What is the legacy? What should a new generation take from the civil rights movement?
You couldn't get mad about your situation. This was a given. But neither could you be content and compromise with the injustice of your situation. You had to find ways to do something about it. One of the ways, the way that my parents advocated, was by being well educated.
My parents were educators. They believed in education. They believed in opportunity.
My parents really stressed personal responsibility, morals, Christian values. They wanted their children to be respectful, respectable people, and they wanted us to be educated.
My parents and my relatives had expectations for all of us. They made it clear to us at an early point in our life that we would not be allowed to fail. Don't even think about dropping out of school. It is inexcusable. You can't do that to this family.
There was always this fierce determination to succeed and to survive and to achieve in spite of your present condition.
We had very cohesive communities, the black doctors, the black teachers, the black business people, the black undertakers, the black professionals were all there. And so one had a sense of what one could be.
We lived in a little area called Titusville, where almost everybody was college educated, where the children all focused on achievement and education. You spent your weekdays at school, your weeknights either studying or in some kind of extracurricular activity that was associated with bettering yourselves, and then you spent Sunday in church.
My parents both worked and they were away all day, but they were there for us on the weekends. And when they were away working during the day, neighbors, aunts, uncles, cousins all watched to make sure that the kids behaved and the kids were kept in play.
Whether we were born poor or middle class, we all kind of accepted a middle-class Judeo-Christian value system.
If you look at the history of black education in the United States, one of the things that you will see is that even in very poor rural communities where parents were illiterate, they got their children to school because they really knew how important an education was for those children. And the expectations of the teachers were high for those students. There are case studies of schools during the era of segregation, black schools that were underfunded yet outperformed white schools in the same region because the community rallied around those students and there were very high expectations.
With every good thing, sometimes there are bad consequences. Desegregation in many ways gave more options and an opportunity, but it also took many role models and out of our communities.
Unfortunately, in the last 40 or so years, as there has been greater mobility within the African American community to move out of places that you didn't want to live, to move your children to places where the schools were better, we have left behind in these communities people that don't have that reinforcing experience of being around more successful African Americans. The good news is that those opportunities are there. The bad news is that we have left behind people who are wondering whether they will be able to move out or move up. And we have also seen, as part of that process, some destruction within the strong black family tradition, black family community, which has given rise to families without strong male presence, which has given rise to teenage pregnancy, which has given rise to motherhood outside of marriage.
Sometimes Dr. King talked about, are we integrating into a burning house? We've integrated into a culture that glorifies excessive materialism, of consumerism, of violence, of individualism, frankly of selfishness.
Martin talked about materialism, war, and racism as a three-headed monster.
Martin used to say that this is not a fight for black people to be able to sin like white people. This is a fight to make America better.
The mainstream was polluted, and we not only had to fight to get in it, once we got in it, we had to try to purify it so that it would be tolerable.
The civil rights movement stood for change. It stood for transforming change. It stood for hope. It stood for sacrifice. It stood for everybody coming together as a community.
I think it's so important for children to be exposed to an understanding of the history and accomplishments of their own group as well as that of other groups, but particularly in the context of African Americans, to really have some knowledge of the achievements of African Americans, because that's not the dominant message about who we are as a people. And if you don't have that information, you're only vulnerable to the negative stereotypes that are so pervasive still in our society.